My name is Leah Parker, and for a while I lived alone in a small apartment complex on the east side of Ridgevale City. It wasn't fancy, but it was cheap, quiet, and close to my night shift job at the diner. The kind of place where everyone minded their own business, or so I thought. It started one night after work. I got home around 2 a.m, dead tired, still in my uniform. I remember unlocking my door and hearing something from the apartment next to mine, apartment 213. A faint scraping sound, like someone dragging metal across the floor. I figured maybe it was the guy who lived there. I'd never met him, but I'd seen him once through the hallway window, tall, thin, always wearing a dark hoodie. That night, the sound didn't stop. It kept going, steady and deliberate, for almost an hour. Scrape. Pause. Scrape again. I put on my headphones to drown it out and finally fell asleep. The next morning, when I left for work, I noticed something strange. The door to 213 was open just a crack. Inside, I could see the corner of a chair, and what looked like dark stains on the tile. My stomach turned. I told myself it was none of my business and kept walking. That was the first mistake. Over the next few nights, things escalated. Every time I came home after my shift, the hallway light outside my door flickered, always the same one. Sometimes I'd find my doormat turned upside down or my mail scattered on the floor. The landlord said it was probably kids, but there were no kids in that building. One night, around 3 a.m, I woke up to something that froze me in place. Breathing. Not mine. Not faint, but deep, slow breaths, right outside my door. I grabbed my phone and crept toward the peephole. What I saw made my chest tighten. Someone was standing there, just inches away. A man in a hoodie facing my door completely still. I couldn't see his face, just the shape of him. I didn't move. Neither did he. We stood like that for what felt like forever. Then, slowly, he turned his head and pressed his face right up to the peephole. I jumped back and dropped my phone. By the time I gathered the courage to look again, he was gone. The next morning, I told the building manager. He didn't believe me, said I was probably imagining things after late shifts. I decided to buy a cheap camera and point it at the hallway outside my door. The footage from that first night made me wish I hadn't. At 2:47 a.m, the camera caught the man again. He wasn't just standing at my door, and he was kneeling. His hands were flat on the floor, his head tilted sideways like he was listening through the crack beneath my door. He stayed like that for 9 full minutes. 9 minutes. The next day, I packed a bag and stayed at a friend's house. I called the police, but when they checked the apartment next door, it was empty. The tenant, the man I'd seen, didn't exist in their records. No one had lived in 213 for over 3 months. Before I left the building for good, I went back one last time to grab my things. Curiosity got the better of me, and I looked through the half-open door of 213. Inside, the air was cold and sour. The walls were covered in scratches, dozens of them, and in the centre of the room was that same metal chair, and on the seat was my missing apartment key. That's when I realised he had never broken in. He didn't need to. He'd already been inside.
My name is Noah Bennett, and I've done cross-country drives more times than I can count. I deliver vintage cars for a living. Long hours, empty highways, and gas station coffee keeping me awake through the night. But there's one drive I'll never forget. It was early November, and I was hauling a restored 1971 Dodge Challenger from Phoenix to Denver. The night was clear, the roads empty, and the only sound was the steady hum of the tires against the asphalt. Around midnight, I hit a stretch of desert road where the GPS suddenly froze. Then it blinked and rerouted. A new path popped up, a detour that cut through a small town called Brenton Hollow. I'd never heard of it, but I was running behind schedule, and the GPS insisted it'd save me 40 minutes. So I took the turn. The road narrowed fast. The lights from the highway disappeared behind me, replaced by pitch black nothing. My headlights caught nothing but dust and weeds. A few miles in, I passed a wooden sign barely standing upright, the paint faded and peeling. All I could make out was the word welcome. After that, my radio cut out. I kept driving until I saw a faint glow ahead. A gas station, old and crooked, with one flickering light above the door. I figured I'd top off the tank and grab a drink. But when I stepped out of the truck, I noticed how quiet it was. Not peaceful quiet, dead quiet. No crickets, no wind, no sound at all. Inside, the place looked abandoned. Dust covered the counter, and the shelves were mostly empty. But what caught my attention were the footprints on the floor, fresh ones, leading around the counter and out the back door. Then I heard a voice. "Punts ready?" It was low and strained, like someone forcing the words out. I turned and saw a man standing by the window, wearing a gas station uniform that looked decades old. His name tag was rusted, the letters unreadable. His skin was pale, and his smile didn't move right. I stammered a thanks, pretending not to notice how still he was. He didn't blink. He didn't even breathe. I hurried back outside and started pumping gas, but the numbers on the meter weren't moving. That S when I saw something in the reflection of my truck window. The man wasn't inside anymore. He was standing behind the pump, watching me. I froze. He took one slow step forward and whispered, almost too quiet to hear, "Roads closed ahead. Don't stay long." Then he turned and walked toward the tree line. I watched until he vanished into the dark. The pump clicked off by itself. I jumped in the truck and floored it. But as I drove farther down the road, I realized something was wrong. The trees were thinning, and I could see faint orange light flickering in the distance, like fire. Then my headlights caught something on the side of the road. A car. A blue sedan, door open, hazard lights flashing. I slowed down, rolled the window down, and called out. No answer. I got out and took a few steps closer. That's when I saw the inside of the car. There were clothes on the seats. A phone still glowing on the dash, but no one inside. Only handprints smeared on the glass, dozens of them, pressed from the inside out. I turned back toward my truck and froze. The man from the station was standing in the middle of the road. Same uniform, same crooked smile. Only this time, his eyes were black. He raised his hand slowly, pointing back toward the way I'd come. And when he spoke, his voice wasn't strained anymore. It was clear, almost mocking. "You shouldn't have taken the detour. I didn't wait." I jumped in the truck, slammed the pedal down, and didn't stop until I saw the glow of city lights. When I finally checked the GPS again, the road I'd taken, the one marked Brenton Hollow, was gone. The app didn't recognize it. There was no record of it anywhere. But every now and then, when I drive alone at night, the signal flickers. And for just a second, it tries to reroute me again.
My name is Ethan Vale, and a few years ago, I took what I thought would be the easiest summer job of my life. I was 19, broke, and desperate for an adventure. So when an ad popped up online for a lifeguard position at a seaside resort in Corvan Bay, I applied immediately. The photos looked unreal. Turquoise water, white sand, private villas lined with palm trees. It seemed like a dream. Free room and board, decent pay, and all I had to do was sit by the pool and keep tourists safe. When I got there, everything felt too perfect. The resort was quiet. Not many guests, even though it was peak season. The staff were polite, but their smiles didn't reach their eyes. They moved like clockwork, mechanical and distant. My first few days were easy. Sun, sea, and silence. But around the fourth night, I started noticing something strange. Every evening, just before sunset, a group of men in black uniforms would escort certain guests down to the private beach. No one else was allowed there. When I asked another lifeguard about it, she looked at me sharply and said, Don't ask questions if you want to keep this job. That should have been my first warning. A week later, I met a girl named Lara, another seasonal worker from Canada. She handled room service for the luxury villas. We got along fast. Same age, same boredom, same feeling that something about this place wasn't right. One night she came to my cabin looking pale and shaky. She said she delivered a tray to Villa 7, one of the private ones near the cliffside. When she walked in, there were no guests, just one of the uniformed men, and a metallic smell so strong it made her gag. On the table were 2 glasses of wine, and what looked like blood splattered across the floor. Before she could say anything, the man looked up and told her, "You shouldn't be here." She ran. The next morning, I went to Villa 7 to see for myself. It was empty, spotless. But as I was leaving, I caught a glimpse of something through the open curtains. The floor tiles near the back patio were cracked, like someone had dragged something heavy across them. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around 2 a.m., I stepped outside for some air and saw 2 men carrying a large black bag down toward the private beach. It sagged in the middle, like something or someone what was inside. They loaded it onto a small motorboat and vanished into the fog. I told Lara what I saw, and we decided to leave the next morning. We packed our things quietly and planned to catch the first ferry out. But before dawn, I woke up to a loud knock at my door. When I opened it, one of the resort managers was standing there. He smiled thinly and said, "You're not on duty today. You should rest." Something in his voice made my blood run cold. I lied, said I wasn't feeling well, and shut the door. But when I looked out the window, I saw 2 security guards posted near the entrance, watching my cabin. Lara texted me from the staff dorms. "They know. Meet me by the maintenance road in 10 minutes." I grabbed my backpack and ran. The path behind the laundry building led into thick jungle that bordered the property. I could hear voices behind me. Men shouting, flashlights cutting through the dark. When I reached the clearing near the service road, I saw Lara's shadow waving for me. But before I could reach her, something exploded from the trees. A blinding light and the sound of an engine. A black van skidded to a stop between us, and men jumped out. Lara screamed. I ran. I didn't look back. I don't know how long I ran. Minutes, maybe hours, until I burst out onto the main highway. I waved down a passing truck, and the driver, seeing the look on my face, didn't ask questions. He took me straight to the nearest town. The police didn't believe a word of it. They said the resort didn't exist. No record of employment. No address under that name. When I returned with the officers to the coordinates I'd saved, there was nothing there. Just an empty stretch of coastline. A week later, I got an anonymous email. No subject, no message, just a photo. It was taken from the beach below the cliffs. In the corner of the image, standing by the water, was Lara's uniform, neatly folded, and right beside it, her staff ID card.
Don't forget to subscribe because there are more stories like this, waiting to be told.